Hi, I'm Brenda Brandenburg down in front of the iconic Majestic Hotel in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and I have Chief Ed Davis with me, who I've known for the last couple of years,
Yes, ma'am.
almost on a personal basis because we've talked about this Majestic quite a bit.
Yes, ma'am, we have.
And you guys did a fantastic job back in 2014 fighting the fire and containing it to the yellow brick.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
But now today we're down here at the site looking at probable demolition.
Yes, ma'am, we are. The Majestic Hotel site is being evaluated by several contractors at this morning for the purposes of forming a request, or a response rather, back to the city's request for proposals for its demolition. We took 3 groups of contractors through the structure. Each one of those groups was allowed to walk through whatever portion of the structure they wanted to, so that they could perform an analysis on the building and make a determination on how they were going to bid in response to the RFQ.
Okay, and when does that response need to be in, or that bid? Was there a deadline on that?
Yes, ma'am. I'll have to refer to Lance Spicer on that.
Okay, okay.
That's his business.
But they've been given a little while.
Yes, ma'am, they have.
Did they go through every floor of the hotel, or was it just kind of random, looking it over?
We went through most of the floors of the hotel.
Okay.
Many of the floors are similar in design and layout, so it wasn't a situation where they had to see every floor. But we did floors 1, 2, and 3, and then did the very top floor and did the roof.
Okay, all right. And was that mostly of the red brick, or did you go into the towers as well?
Went in the lanai as well.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
all
All
right.
of them were.
Can you tell me a little bit about what it looked like?
It's in very poor condition. The acoustic ceiling has been pulled down by people who were performing illegal salvage work inside the building.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a lot of the remnants of the cladding on the interior walls is on the floor. The ceiling is on the floor. I don't think there's a rated wall left in the building. The interior finish of the building is in very poor condition. The salvagers, the people that were illegally salvaging the copper wire, the plumbing, have destroyed many of the walls. I don't believe there's a rated wall left inside the building on its interior. All the corridor walls have been breached. Many of the walls between the tenant spaces have been breached. There's some real issues with it, and the fact that folks have taken the turbines off the roof of the building have allowed a lot of water infiltration, and you're having water damage on all the floors. So.
Was there any wildlife living inside?
Actually, there was a group of buzzards, for lack of a better word,
Okay.
that were living in the building. And so yeah, there is a contingent of birds living in the building.
Any evidence of squatters or vagrants being in there?
Yes, ma'am. There is some evidence that people have still been salvaging electrical wire and things like that. There are some areas in the stairwell where there are items that were not there in our previous visits that are there now. So we know people are still getting into the building, unfortunately.
That's what I was going to ask you. You know, the city has owned the building now for several months due to a purchase from Mr. Hassenflue and his park residences, and it's supposed to be secured.
Yes, ma'am, it is secured. It
so-
is a situation, though, to where that it's pretty simple for someone to come in from the backside, bust a window, and walk right in. And that's what continues to happen.
I
And
see.
the city follows behind them and puts up their plywood and secures the building, and then someone comes along and busts out another window. And it's just a very vicious cycle. And it's a continual game of people trying to get into the building. And the city's done everything they can to secure it the best that they can and keep it secure.
Right, right. Any holes in the floor that were evident, like that somebody could walk and fall through? I know you said it was not sound, obviously, but...
Yes, ma'am. There are no areas of collapse outside of the areas in the kitchen.
Okay.
There's some collapse in that area. As far as the floor deck on this particular building, it is concrete, so we don't have any kind of imminent collapse of most of the building like we did on the yellow brick.
Now, your department, you were head of the department at the time in 2012, May the 1st, 2012.
Yes, ma'am.
You did a walk through this building.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And did a full assessment with photographs and
Yes, ma'am.
everything. Tell me how it compares today to what it looked like in 2012, because in 2012 you issued warnings right then that
Yes,
this
ma'am.
building was getting ready to collapse,
Yes, ma'am.
fall apart.
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me where we are now from that.
Well, the lanai towers and the red brick are in much worse condition than they were at that point in time. The yellow brick building was the one that we were always concerned about imminent collapse on. It had some huge issues as far as the structural integrity of the floors and things of that nature. you know, the red brick building and the Lanai Towers, as far as like the floors themselves, floors are in decent shape. It's all the walls, the cladding on the exterior of the building, the lack of fire separation, those kind of issues that are very problematic and very expensive to remedy. I mean, from a standpoint of feasibility to try and deal with all of the issues that are in the building, it would take an incredible sum of money that would just be beyond what anyone that performed an analysis on it would want to do. But, you know, with a large enough amount of money, anything's possible.
Right. What do you think about how expensive it's going to be to demolish it? Do you have any idea?
I mean, you'd have to talk to Mr.
Yeah,
Spicer.
I'll talk to him. Well, you know, the Arlington has and the Majestic have been sister hotels for
Yes,
a long
ma'am.
time.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you did your walkthrough of the Majestic back in 2012, you did one on the Arlington as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And there were pictures of it that showed some damage and things that needed to be corrected.
Yes, ma'am.
From what I can see from 2012, your report on the Majestic, nothing really was done.
On the Majestic?
On the Majestic.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Do you know if anything's been done to any of the other buildings that you walked through, such as the Arlington?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
There's been incredible amounts of things done in downtown Hot Springs. You know, the Arlington Hotel has added exterior stairwells. They've done a lot of things. You know, the Arlington still has challenges, but they don't have challenges on the same level as the Majestic.
Do you think that maybe the reason things weren't remedied on after your report on the Majestic was because it was empty?
I think the problem with the Majestic is the large amount of money that it would take to be able to bring it back to a point of viability. I mean, you're talking about buildings that cover 5.14 acres of land. They are huge. And when you begin to look at that from a perspective of a developer, that's a huge project to undertake.
Absolutely.
It's very scary.
Absolutely.
And, you know, people are in the business of developing because they make money at it. It's not a charitable endeavor. So,
Were you here in 2006 when the Majestic closed by chance?
Yes, ma'am.
You were? Okay. So you knew that it closed and what happened with it and that sort of thing. Knew of it when it was inhabited.
Yes, ma'am.
How was it when it was inhabited in 2006? Did it look like it had been being maintained or not?
It was marginal as far as its adherence to the fire code. You know, we had issues with it from time to time. You know, they were pretty good about fixing those issues when they were brought up to them. However, after 2006, whenever the building was no longer occupied, especially the yellow brick, it began to deteriorate very quickly.
Now, in 2006, did it fall under the vacant structure code at that point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When did we go to the Thermal Basin Fire District Code?
We did that in 2013.
13,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. And I know it's going on a phase to allow fire suppression
Yes,
on
ma'am.
different floors and what have you.
Yes, ma'am.
That vacant structure code, do you think that has any bearing on the way the buildings are in Hot Springs? You know, we've got the Majestic, not only the Majestic, but the Medical Arts vacant as well on those upper floors.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was allowed to stay like that
Yes, ma'am.
as long as there were no inhabitants in it, it was secured from the elements. There were
Yes, ma'am.
certain provisions on that
Yes,
structure code.
Yes, ma'am.
But do you think that has had any impact on the outcome of where we are today?
Yes, ma'am.
You do?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I think
It's one of the reasons why that we worked so diligently to bring about the Thermal Basin Fire District and the application of the existing building code to allow buildings such as the Majestic to be able to be rehabbed. And the existing building code is the thing that has given new life to downtown Hot Springs.
I agree with you.
You see all of the development that's going on in those buildings, it is strictly because of the existing building code.
Right, right. Well, and you've been instrumental in getting that to Hot Springs. So
A lot of people work.
yes,
on that. A lot of
yes.
people work on
But
that.
you know, you're pretty key in that. And I know that there was a lot of opposition to it by building owners because it's so expensive to put fire suppression in.
Yes, ma'am.
But we're seeing a lot of change in Hot Springs. And if anything, the yellow brick fire was the catalyst to
It
getting
was.
this done.
It
You
was.
know?
Yes, ma'am.
So if there's a silver lining, I guess that's probably the one that I would
ma'am.
choose to see.
In 2013, when we initiated the existing building code, and the board reviewed it and decided that that was going to be the vehicle we were going to use to help rehabilitate the building downtown. That was a very key event. And then whenever we had the tragedy of the Majestic fire, that was actually, I can say that was the catalyst.
Yeah, right.
It actually began to see a lot of action occur.
Yeah. Tell me just a little bit about, and this may be out of your level, I don't know, probably code enforcement. But when you work and you look in these buildings, you inspect and you write these reports and tell them what you're looking at from a fire department standpoint. What about code enforcement? Do you know whether any violations were issued prior to your walkthrough?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. There's violations issued by
And I'm not talking
many
about just to
departments.
Mr. Hassenflug.
Yes, ma'am.
But the prior owner, did he have violations, code violations that he was dealing with?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
He did, and he was very good about making sure that those violations were corrected right up until about 2006.
And then what happened?
Well, then the building was vacated.
Okay.
And, it began to go into a stage of demise.
Right. And with code violations, are they still issued for vacant structures?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
We're dealing with the multi-story structures right now. We have plans in the future to deal with the smaller structures that are problematic. But it's like my father always said: you eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Absolutely.
And the city of Hot Springs is eating its elephant of its building problems one bite at a time.
Right, right. Well, I so appreciate you talking to me today.
ma'am.
This is not a good day for me because you know how
understand.
much I love the Majestic.
Yes, ma'am.
But I appreciate you talking to me. And
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Standing in front of the Majestic Hotel, yet another Hot Springs landmark slated for the wrecking ball. We've seen too many of our fabulous structures disappear, not to mention our Opera House in the 70s. And while I realize that at that time maybe there wasn't such a movement for preservation, at this point there's really not much excuse. This is one of our older structures. It's fabulous, and while people have told me that you can't fix it, it can't be saved, there are other places with the ordinance, Eureka Springs for instance, where you can't tear it down if it has 3 walls. And this definitely has 4 walls, fountains, marble, wrought iron, things that you could never replace. We have saved buildings in the past. I've been an advocate for preservation in Hot Springs because this is what makes us unique. This is what sets us apart from a lot of other towns, is our heritage. And there's really no building that should be demolished at this point, but certainly not one that is such a landmark. It is iconic. It wasn't that long ago that it was open, and I know that it could be fixed. I've seen buildings, I remember Bonini's building was condemned downtown, didn't have a staircase, and now it's fabulous and it's gallery. And so without this proactive, people getting in there and saving these buildings, we won't have anything left but pictures. And there's already too many pictures already of buildings that are gone.
Probably the biggest conflict that's going to be with the Majestic restoration, if anything's going to stand in its way.
What's going to be the biggest conflict?
Yeah.
Well, you have 2 different factions. You have the people that think it would be better to remove it and put something else in its place, and that it's not worth fixing, it's too much trouble. And then you have the people that say it doesn't matter how much trouble it is to fix it, it has to be fixed, it has to be preserved. There's so many instances. Our downtown, the preservation, is it called preservation? The first city capitol downtown in Little Rock. What do you know what that one is? We have a capitol and then we have the restoration. Okay, in Hot Springs, the restoration, our first state capitol, was slated for demolition. They were going to put a highway through, and it was just an active group of people that saved that, which is now a huge tourist attraction. The National Baptist Hotel was slated for demolition. It's now being used. So you're just going to get into who thinks it's more important to save it and who thinks it can't be saved.
Do you think it's 50-50, or what do you think the percentage is on the positive and negative?
I don't know. I mean, I've had people come by on a studio tour and it went both ways drastically, and everybody wants to see something great go here, and obviously that would be ideal to have something great here, but we have room here and we already have something great. It didn't burn,
Is there anything being done right now to help save it, that you know of?
Well, I think there's petitions being circulated and a conversation being generated just like the one we're having.
Are those going well?
I would say yes. It's always 50-50. I think you're right, because I've seen buildings go and I've seen buildings stay.
What do you want to happen with this building?
Well, I want it to be restored. I think it's amazing. I think there's all kinds of architectural integrity, but I am all about preservation, and I think that's what makes Hot Springs unique. You know, otherwise we're just another little town.
The status of your petition.
I'm sorry, this might be weird. Can I hug you? This is awesome. I'm going to restore it.